Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today, I'll be taking a look at the new Fantagraphics release, The Past is a Grotesque Animal by Tommi Parish. Tommi Parish is an artist that's really stood out to me over the last 5 years or whatever of doing this channel. Someone who I think is both an amazing writer and an amazing artist. Someone whose art, like you can tell from the cover, is bringing in so many different elements from the fine art world, painting world proper into graphics, and then is just such a superb writer of character interactions and dialogue in the other stories I've read that are more fictional. That is just a huge strength of Tommi Parish's writing. This book is more of a collection of short stories and like journal pages and stuff, so more of a direct look into like the creator's head, a little bit more like autobiographical, but not really. And some really interesting stuff going on still, a lot of style play. So really excited about this book. You'll see here, like just right as you open the cover, the kind of journalistic stuff where there's photos, drawings. I don't know if these were made specifically for the book or if this is just what Tommi Parish's kind of like scrapbook journals look like. If this is part of how the artist processes the world, I'm not sure, but it's a big part of the book. There's a bunch of short stories. I'm just going to go through and images, ideas that pop out at me. I'm not going to show like one from everything in the book or whatever. There's just a lot going on in here. I do appreciate the approach, though, even though this is kind of more autobiographical. It takes on more of like a journaling. It's the same thing that kind of Brandon does that makes me enjoy Brandon's diary comics a little bit better. So a little bit closer to journaling, at least what I think of as journaling versus a diary. Like in my mind, journaling is just like musing on a page to yourself, like talking to yourself. It could be talking about what's going on in the day, but also like what you think about. Like you have this here where it's like a drawing cut out and taped in there. So more like the scrapbooky, open, freewheeling type of philosophizing, theorizing about the world. I find that interesting. What I don't find as interesting is like the daily diary, what I call a diary, which is like, dear diary, today I went to McDonald's. Those kind of comics aren't as much for me, but I really like this more journaling approach that's going on in this book. That approach lets Tommi Parish jump between styles, jump between page layout approaches, jump between mediums. So there's going to be a lot of that change throughout. This particular section is almost more like poster designy with the letter layouts and the characters climbing up the letters. I really enjoy that look. And then as you switch to the next story, you have a character sitting on someone's face getting their ass eaten, but reading a book that has that image in it. So I think that's particularly interesting as well, that these things are kind of merging together in that way, even though they don't necessarily seem to have any like straightforward narrative flow. They seem like two different pieces of the book, but one shows up in the other. The tracing here, I think maybe is the same tracing that was taped in earlier. Tommi Parish is talking about liking these drawings by Blake where the bodies are all mushed and morphed together, and this looks like another tracing of those. So that's one of those like journal things that comes in there but seems to have a relationship to the story here, or to one of the stories. Here you can see another shift in style, a lot more like hatching and cross-hatching going on. This is kind of like a Maury Povich-ish type show in this story, and I really love this image of the audience. I think it's Parish's understanding of like shape and rhythm of shape across a page, whether it's in black and white or paint, that really in color really appeals to me in the art, and this is a good example of that. Had to crack up at this. Somewhere close, a conflicted male feminist leans over his date masturbating and tries to think about her personality. had to laugh at that. The conflicted male feminist who still wants to get laid but has to treat women respectfully. The poor bastards. Quit jerking off on girls, you weirdos. Really beautiful ink wash piece, lovely composition, simple little figure. Love that drawing. This is a little short story, again, of the style switch. You can see no matter what style Tommi Parish is working in, it's looked beautiful, but this one's all about the trauma of art school. So here you have, this is really great. You have this character that's like at the show showing off their artwork, and they're like in this tank that's slowly filling up with water, which is definitely how it feels to be like at one of those shows where you have to be socially competent and you're not. And so eventually you just drown. The artist drowns and dies, and then like everyone's looking at them and like, oh, this is a beautiful performance piece, and they're going through all the art world baffle gab that anyone who's been to art school would be familiar with. So really enjoyed that one and really enjoyed the different style. Got another journal page here. This one illustration here is very stressful to me. It's a very beautiful illustration, but it's like looking at everyone in this store based on like all of the fucking categories you tick off in boxes. That's the biggest thing that like I've always picked up in Tommi Parish's art is obviously this artist is non-binary or trans and something in those queer categories. But that's always been kind of like like a more poetic sub element that's like obviously what most of the stories are about, but it's not so over the top. Here it gets over the top where now we're playing those like genreification games. Just deleted Facebook for the third time, 21, straight, trans man. Attracted to inanimate objects, 27, cis man. Fell in love yesterday, 32, straight, cis woman. So like all this stuff, like these categorizations of people that I've never been a fan of. I think it's only doing more damage than it's helping anything. The more you stuff yourself in the category, the more you trapped you are. And this just seems very stressful to me to have to think about people that way. Like when I meet someone, I just like, I don't know, there's this person in front of me and I have no fucking clue about them. And they're much more interesting whether they're 36, straight, cis, straight-ish, cis man. Like, I don't know. I just, that stuff just overwhelming to me. I'd rather just get to know each individual person. And it's very strange to me to think about walking around a grocery store. When I'm walking around the grocery store, like the other people in the grocery store are just like things to move around, not people to fucking worry about if they're cis or not. I guess that's kind of the argument is we should be more empathetic and looking at everyone that way and not as obstacles to get around. But I personally don't have the energy to care about everyone in the world that deeply to care about whether they're cis or not. I don't know. You're just the person who won't get out of the fucking tomato sauce aisle. Some really beautiful painting here, beautiful composition. You can see an artist that has like a pretty full range of exposure to a full range of mediums and concepts in art, which is really appealing. Kind of look at a different style here, another approach. Seems like maybe more markers or something, but again, just impeccable composition and art throughout, great cartooning. I feel that a lot when I bend over these days. This is a really strange story about experience sharing. They're talking about like this collective, they have like these memories that were provided by other people. So this provider visited his rural hometown for the first time since childhood, and that's the memory. And so she's able to go like dive into someone else's memory and experience what is put as everything at once. I think that gets to, even though don't get me wrong, I love this book. I think it's great. I just have a deep philosophical difference with the author that makes the things that are being put forth in the stories uncomfortable to me. Like I find it very uncomfortable that there's like throughout the book, it's very obvious that Tommi Parish dislikes being in the real world, dislikes having a body. Like I get it. I was a Gnostic escapist for a long time myself. I still don't. I have terrible allergies. Like I just shouldn't be in the physical world. I've always wanted to, become a spirit and escape. I just had to admit to myself at some point that Gnostic escapism is not possible. I'm here with the body. So this book to me feels saturated in the desire to just not be a physical entity at all and to get out of the misery of life. And there's stories like this that seem almost like it seems like it should be a critique of technology, but I don't get that. I get this very like hopeful, God, wouldn't it be nice to just jump in someone else's memory? I also get a little bit of like a strange socialism applied to memories in this, which is fucking terrifying to me, that it's like this provider, someone who is like collectively sharing, because they've got privileged enough to have a good life, so they need to record that and let other people dive into it. That's a little bit of what I get out of that story, and that's very uncomfortable for me. I like having the boundary of my mind preserved, whereas I think there's a lot of trying to erode all boundaries here, because when someone's so uncomfortable in the boundary of their body and the boundary of the confines of their life, like, of course they want to get, of course I want to get out of my allergies and my aches and my pains and all of that. This is another page that kind of gets at that. Beautiful artwork, but it says, I wonder if feeling like this all the time is normal. This is normal, right? But I'm mute, and everyone in the world is bored and preoccupied, and they shrug in perfect unison while looking at their iPhones. The calm in between the rising panic feels so good. And for a book that's like in this vein of like, hey, you know, you should pay attention to the people at the grocery store and be empathetic to them. You know, don't just think about them as the thing that's in the way of your tomato sauce. Don't just be the bored, checked out, preoccupied person. I think within that, there's actually a gigantic lack of empathy, is that you don't know why those people are bored and checked out. You don't know what they're going on through in their life. You don't know why I'm the guy at the grocery store that doesn't want to fucking deal with you because I've got like a disabled partner at home. I work 2 jobs, like all this stuff. I don't give a shit about you. I don't need to give a shit about you. It's someone else's job, primarily yours in the first place. So there seems to be this real desire in this book that like everyone should be in each other's brains. Everyone should know everything about each other. Like that we all kind of merge into this one mass animal of like care. But it just, the care doesn't come back the other way as far as I can see. There's a bit of like internal self-obsession and always worrying about your own pain in the world rather than, you know, like whatever's going on externally. So those kind of just outlooks come up over and over again in the book in an uncomfortable way. Then there's an experiment in here, and they're only putting Tommi Parish's contributions to this, but it was called Advice Comics, a collaborative online comics project from 2013 to 2018. Anyone could write in with a question and an issue, and the comics would create advice comics. So this is basically like a Dear Abby, is that what it was? And like this is, Sally, I'm a guy who wants to make a girl I know feel good about herself without looking like I'm coming on to her. What would you suggest? And then Tommi Parish does a comic in response to that. Beautiful art, amazing use of like texture tones and stuff in this. Love that. But also I think it is so fucking wildly irresponsible to take someone who's asking, and some of the questions are, you know, more psychologically intense and loaded, people dealing with problems bigger than trying to hit on a girl. And then you throw them to like comic artists who aren't trained experts in psychology to answer this. They're just kind of BSing their own like little view on the world. I think a lot of the answers that Tommi Parish gave in here were, you know, fairly decent answers, but I don't think this is a smart thing to do at all. Like just a bunch of hurt people blind leading the blind seemed like a weird project to me. And then you get some stuff like this where it's very obviously from one person's ideological worldview, and it's not really like a psychological thing. What I'm kind of trying to say here is that when feminists say that they hate men, it doesn't mean that they hate every individual man. It means they're expressing their deep discontent and anger with the current patriarchal structures we're all trapped in. So blah, 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 blah. I was raised on Tumblr. I don't really know as much about philosophy as I think I do, or about world history as I think I do, but let me go ahead and spread this bullshit to some more kids. And then here it says, saying I hate men is shorthand for the way power is distributed in this society is so unfair. And I reckon that's pretty damn reasonable. Okay, no, it is not reasonable. Because the words I hate men and the words the way power is distributed in this society is so unfair mean very fucking different things. The majority of the people who hear that aren't as educated as you want them to be because their life hasn't allowed them to be. So again, a lack of empathy showing through here. And you can't expect them to even understand the sentence, the way power is distributed in this society is so unfair, without a pretty deep education in history, philosophy, theory, all those kinds of things. So it is not pretty damn reasonable to expect someone to extrapolate out of a queer punker kid saying, I hate men, this very sophisticated, very educated thing. For people who spend a lot of time talking about social constructs and things of that sort, it seems pretty damning to me that they don't realize that education and the type of information you pick up in education, history, philosophy, theory, are also all socially constructed things, and that you have been very privileged to encounter those socially constructed things because you have had a fairly decent education or you have been exposed to those things. A lot of people don't have that. So no, it is not pretty damn reasonable, and it is strategically very fucking unwise, and that's how we wound up with Trump, is because people won't take the time to actually sit there and explain themselves. They think that everyone is going to take their I hate men slogans and reasonably interpret them. And there's just some kind of that in a lot of these stories as well, even though, again, I'm really loving the art and the approach. And just another one here where we'll take a look at all the great art to end on, because I'm going hard on the critique. So it's a really strange package for me because it's an artist whose work I absolutely love. It's an artist who I will continue to buy their work. It's like every page in it is beautiful. I think it's successful comics all the way through. I just think, I guess maybe it's good in the sense that when you have such a good artist making such powerful work, it's a very powerful statement of that worldview. Unfortunately, I just have very deep, long-standing, well-earned, I believe, 25 years of philosophy and thinking and being trained in it that makes me have my philosophical disagreements with what's in this book. And the deepest disagreement that comes up over and over is many of the stories in here are like always someone trying to escape, look for a way out. There's a lot of imagery. I'm surprised I didn't put more tags on pages with that, but a lot of imagery of like climbing into holes and just getting into like a void or stepping out of reality. And so I see all throughout this some like Gnostic escapism, someone who does not like the body, the world, the life that they're trapped in, and desperately wants some way out, instead of engaging in a project of like, this is where I'm at, this is who I am, this is what's around me, how do I make the best of it? And I made that mistake. I get that's one of the reasons that I'm so against that worldview and these ideas of identity, is that there's anytime you have a transcendentalist, I would call it, escapist desire, you're just going to get disappointment. And I lived that for a long time. I was a transcendentalist Gnostic for a very long time. And eventually I just had to like, I'm a weak kid who's not athletic, who has a bunch of allergies. And I said, fuck it, I'm going to go do mixed martial arts and make peace with my body. So when I read this stuff, I know this is going to be seen as like hating on the book, but mostly I read it and I'm just kind of like bummed to see people who feel this bad in the world and are struggling in this way. And I wish I could dig into the philosophies behind these things more deeply and pick them apart more deeply without running into politicized territory, because I'm not trying to make a politicized statement at all. It's a philosophical statement. So it's a very interesting book for me because there was a lot to chew on and a lot to mentally argue with and a lot to like, okay, well, this is how this person sees it. Like when they're in a grocery store, they think everyone there is a person that should be paid attention to, and that I'm the bad guy for wanting you to just quit being the object in the way of my tomato sauce. So that always makes for a good and engaging read. And when you have such a amazing artist as Tommi Parish, such a great writer, such a great cartoonist, such a painter, then it's an enjoyable experience, even if the whole time you're going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, like what what awful ways to look at things throughout the book. So I'd still highly recommend this book. I would go mull it over. I'll probably reread it and piece the pieces together more and find some bigger message in it myself, because Tommi Parish is someone whose work I'll continue to revisit. So definitely check it out.
Make sure to like, smash that subscribe button, and ring that bell.